Every motorcycle manufacturer has that one bike, the one they'd rather you forgot about, the one that the engineers are still losing sleep over, the dealers are still mad about, and the owners, well, most of the owners got rid of theirs a long time ago. From a scooter with a seatbelt and a Formula One trim package, to a rotary-powered disaster that was allegedly dumped in the ocean, to a motorcycle that was literally funded by stealing retirement savings from 227 people. These are the worst bikes every major brand has ever made. I have organized them from well-meaning failures all the way to machines so bad someone should be in prison. For the last one, that actually happened. So let's start with the bikes that were bad, but in a kind of lovable way. The ones where the intentions were good, but the execution wasn't. BMW built a scooter, and not just any scooter. They built a scooter with a roll cage, a 4-point seatbelt, a windshield wiper with washer fluid, and a heated seat. The BMW C1 launched in the year 2000 with one selling point. It was so safe that BMW claimed you would not need a helmet. However, most countries still required helmets, which completely destroyed the entire reason the C1 existed. It weighed 408 pounds and made 15 horsepower from a 125 cubic centimeter engine. For context, that is heavier than most 1-liter sport bikes while making less power than a riding lawnmower. BMW offered 4 trim levels, including, and I am not making this up, a Williams Formula One edition named after the Formula One racing team, yes, on a 125 cubic centimeter scooter. A university study later concluded that BMW had approached the entire project from the perspective of a car manufacturer rather than a motorcycle manufacturer, leading to a sales disaster. Sales dropped from over 10,000 units in 2001 to just 2,000 units in 2002 before BMW pulled the plug. They never even tried selling it in America, and honestly, that is probably the smartest decision anyone made during this entire project. That BMW safety obsession was misguided, but at least it came from good intentions. Yamaha's next disaster came from a different place entirely. It came from being too smart for the room. Here's how you know a bike flopped. In 1998, 5 years after launch, dealers in America still had brand new unsold Yamaha GTS 1000 motorcycles sitting on their showroom floors. 5 years. That's how badly this went. And the painful part is that the GTS 1000 was right about everything. When it launched in 1993, it was the first production motorcycle with fuel injection, ABS, and hub center steering, which means no traditional forks at all. Every single one of those technologies is now standard on modern bikes. In 1993, nobody cared. The problem was the execution. Yamaha took the screaming engine from the FZR 1000 and detuned it from 130 horsepower down to 100, then dropped it into a 630-pound chassis that cost over $12,000. The designer later admitted the front suspension's upper arm was too short, making the bike heavy to steer at low speeds. So you had a 630-pound motorcycle that did not want to turn in parking lots and cost BMW money while wearing a Yamaha badge. In Germany, only 1,369 units sold across 7 years. Yamaha was 15 years too early about everything. The surviving ones are now cult collectibles, which might be the most bittersweet ending in motorcycle history. Now, if being too early was Yamaha's problem, Honda's problem was being too confused. The DN01 launched in 2008 as a motorcycle scooter cruiser hybrid that was supposed to attract people who do not normally ride. At $15,599, it cost 50% more than the Honda Transalp, while using the exact same 680 cubic centimeter engine, but it offered zero luggage storage, none on a commuter. The absurdly long wheelbase made it miserable in city traffic, and the feet-forward ergonomics with no windscreen turned highway riding into punishment. Motorcycle.com put it on their 10 worst motorcycles of the modern era list, saying it was 2 parts scooter, 1 part cruiser, 1 part sport bike, and that they used the wrong parts of each. Honda dealers quickly found a new meaning for DN01. They started calling it Did Not Order One. Riders shortened that to Do Not Own One. Honda killed it after 2 years. The one silver lining is that the transmission tech eventually evolved into Honda's now popular DCT system, so at least something good came out of $15,000 of confusion. KTM's failure is the saddest one on this list, because unlike the others, this bike was actually good. KTM unveiled the RC8 prototype at the 2003 Tokyo Motor Show. Their research and development chief said that when we fight Japan, we want to fight them in their own office. Bold words. It took 6 years to reach production, and in that time, 3 disasters hit back to back. Their chief engineer died suddenly in 2006. The 2008 global financial crisis crushed the motorcycle market right at launch, and BMW released the near-perfect S1000RR at the exact same moment. KTM went through nearly 50 engine prototypes during development, only for 250 units to be allocated to all of North America across 2011 and 2012 combined. The chief executive officer eventually declared that superbikes were too dangerous for public roads and killed the program. The cruel twist is that the RC8 is now becoming a collector's item, and former Grand Prix winner Jeremy McWilliams called it one of the easiest bikes you'll ever ride. KTM returned to sport bikes in 2025 with the 990 RCR, essentially admitting the RC8 was the right product at the wrong time. And then there's Aprilia, who decided the best person to design a motorcycle was a man famous for a $90 lemon squeezer. In 1995, Aprilia hired celebrity industrial designer Philippe Starck to create the Moto 6.5. Starck designed hotel interiors and kitchen gadgets. Aprilia's own head of testing refused to collaborate on the project. The CEO was the only person in the entire company who believed in it. Visor Down's review called it a crime against motorcycling. The tank looked like a tea cozy, and the bowl-shaped exhaust created terrible weight distribution. Return of the Cafe Racers delivered perhaps the best review line in motorcycling history, saying you could gather all the people who remember the Aprilia Moto 6.5 into one elevator and they'd still have room. After the disaster, Starck went back to designing toilets. One custom builder who later modified a Moto 6.5 also happened to own a Starck-designed toilet, completing the set. Alright, quick detour. There are a few bikes on this list that do not need a full story, they just need a proper roasting. So here are 3 disasters in 60 seconds. Harley-Davidson Topper, 1960, the only scooter Harley-Davidson ever made. It started with a lawnmower pull cord. There was no cooling fan. It required pre-mixed fuel like a weed whacker. Fewer than 100 survive. Its greatest achievement was hauling baseball relief pitchers for the Milwaukee Braves for 36 years. Next, Royal Enfield Continental GT 535, 2013. It looked like a cafe racer from 20 feet away. Up close, it vibrated so badly it shook its own license plate off. 29 horsepower with a red line at 5,500 RPM. The replacement 650 Twin had 60% more power for barely more money, and it became the best-selling motorcycle in Britain. Next, Ducati Passo 750, 1986, designed by Massimo Tamburini, who later created the legendary 916s. It used a Weber carburetor taken from a car, and that carburetor never worked on a motorcycle. It rolled on 16-inch wheels, which made replacement tires impossible to find for a decade. It is the only Ducati in history that has gotten cheaper over 40 years. You can buy one for $1,500. That tells you everything. Okay. Those bikes were bad, but they were also kind of funny. Nobody died, nobody went to prison, nobody's fuel tank expanded when you put gas in it. That changes now. From here on out, these bikes did not just fail commercially, they failed the people who trusted them. Riders got stranded, riders got hurt, and in one case, riders were scammed out of their retirement savings. If the first act was that they tried, this next section is the part where trying is not a good enough excuse anymore. Let's start with a mystery. In 1974, Suzuki spent years and millions developing a motorcycle powered by a Wankel rotary engine. They hired Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon, to introduce the bike at launch. They commissioned the legendary Giorgetto Giugiaro, the man who designed the Volkswagen Golf and the DeLorean, to style the instrument cluster. Everything about the launch said, this is the future of motorcycling. So what went wrong? Everything. The Suzuki RE5 needed both water and oil cooling systems with separate radiators. The throttle operated 5 cables simultaneously. Fuel economy was in the low 30s miles per gallon, which was catastrophic during the 1973 oil crisis. Cycle World magazine wrote what might be the greatest motorcycle review of all time, calling it a machine with the mechanical simplicity of a 747, the sound of an out-of-tune World War II bomber, and the performance of a fair to middling 350. Only about 6,500 were ever built. But here is the detail that everyone remembers. The persistent rumor, reported by multiple sources, is that Suzuki dumped all unsold RE5s and spare parts into the ocean off Japan out of corporate shame. One buyer who purchased a leftover new RE5 from a dealer said the dealer made it crystal clear he never wanted to see that bike again and refused to work on it. A dealer refusing to service a brand new bike he had just sold you. That is how bad the RE5 was. If you think an ocean full of rotary motorcycles sounds extreme, wait until you hear what Triumph did to the 600 cubic centimeter sport bike market. In the year 2000, Triumph released the TT600, the first digitally fuel-injected 600 cubic centimeter sport bike ever made. Being first is supposed to be an advantage, not this time. A devastating dead zone between 3,000 and 4,000 revolutions per minute meant the Sagem fuel injection simply refused to deliver fuel in the exact range riders used most. The bike stumbled, stalled, and hesitated constantly. Vacuum hoses connecting the airbox to the throttle bodies cracked and split regularly, which reviewers said was the main reason the fuel injection failed. One dedicated owner went through 25 generations of custom ECU maps trying to fix the flat spot. An entire aftermarket industry grew up just for this one bike's fueling problems. 4 separate recalls hit in 4 years. And the cruelest part is that the TT600 had one of the best chassis and brake packages of any 600 cubic centimeter bike you could buy. Reviewers loved how it handled. Everything else was a catastrophe. Resale values collapsed so badly that used TT600s sold for as little as $2,000. Now, the Indian FTR 1200. I am going to let the owners tell this story themselves. Ride-apart writer Jason Zaruki spent a full year with one. He wrote that he had to let a brand new, modern, fuel-injected motorcycle warm up before he could ride it. His 50-year-old carbureted Japanese bikes have an excuse, he said. The FTR does not. From FTR forums, one owner wrote that the bike dies multiple times until warm-up and bogs horribly until it hits 150 degrees. Indian's response to fueling complaints was reportedly that it is just how it is. A recall covered 2019 through 2022 models for a coolant junction that could leak hot coolant directly onto the rear tire while riding. Multiple riders reported burns on their legs from normal riding. The common fix among FTR owners is a $400 to $500 aftermarket tuner, one that does what Indian's own engineers apparently could not or would not. This from a motorcycle that costs up to $18,000. Indian spent years building hype after their FTR 750 flat tracker dominated racing. Everyone wanted the street version. Then the street version could not idle in their driveways without stalling. If Indian's attitude was that that's just how it is, MV Agusta's approach to their ongoing disaster was somehow even worse. At least Indian's FTR starts. Eventually, the MV Agusta F3 675 sometimes just does not. Remember the Suzuki RE5 ocean dumping rumor? At least Suzuki had the decency to be ashamed. MV Agusta looked at their unfolding disaster and apparently just shrugged. The F3 675 launched in 2012 looking absolutely stunning. 128 claimed horsepower from an inline triple in a 381-pound package. On paper, incredible. In reality, it became ground zero for the Sprag clutch epidemic. A Sprag clutch is a one-way bearing in the starter mechanism, and on the MV, it fails constantly. MV Agusta forums have dozens of dedicated threads with owners reporting they are on their 3rd, 4th, even 5th replacement. One professional engineer who owned a 2022 model eventually reverse-engineered the entire assembly himself because MV could not solve the problem. When he asked about a redesigned part, MV reportedly said that a larger part would fix it, but there was no space. A 2014 recall covered 223 motorcycles for swing arm bolts with incorrect heat treatment that could fail while riding. A 2017 fork recall across 9 models instructed owners not to ride at all until the fix was completed. As a bonus, MV put the horn and turn signal switches in the opposite position from every other motorcycle, so every time you tried to signal a lane change, you would honk instead. And then there is the Kawasaki H2 Mach 4, the Widowmaker. This one is not funny. It was the most powerful production motorcycle of its era in 1972. 74 horsepower from a 748 cubic centimeter 2-stroke triple. All of that power arrived in one violent surge between 5,000 and 7,000 RPM with nothing below. The lightweight frame flexed so badly under load it would bind up and then snap back like a spring, triggering lethal tank slappers at highway speed. A single front disc brake was all you got. Insurance companies in some regions flat out refused to cover it because of the crash rates. Kawasaki's own marketing research apparently concluded customers find it very hard to purchase new motorcycles when they are dead. Even 2 steering dampers could not tame the handling. Kawasaki's brochure bragged it was faster than any Suzuki, any Triumph, any BSA, any Honda, any anything. They forgot to mention it was also the most likely to put you in the ground. An estimated 17,000 were built. Roughly 3,200 survive today. Do the math on that survival rate and think about what it means. The modern Kawasaki Ninja H2 deliberately revived the name in the 2010s, this time with every modern safety system imaginable. Traction control, ABS, electronic suspension, cornering management. It took Kawasaki 50 years and several dozen dead riders to learn that raw power without control is not a feature, it is a liability. If you're still here, hit subscribe. This last section is the part of the list I could not believe when I was researching it. We have covered misguided ideas and dangerous bikes. What comes next is worse than both. Alright, so here is where things get genuinely dark. Moto Guzzi and the V10 Centauro. Ride Apart titled their feature on this bike, "An Italian Nightmare, the worst bike I ever worked on." The Centauro has a plastic fuel tank made from a polymer that expands when exposed to gasoline. The tank physically grows 3/4 of an inch too long, and the bolt holes stop lining up. Owners had to let the tank sit loose and rattling. The oil pump has no roller bearing. When the shaft develops even a slight wobble, the gears collide and the pump explodes, destroying the engine. For the fuel lines running between the exhaust pipes, Moto Guzzi's factory solution was zip ties from the assembly line. When a mechanic tried to source a replacement wiring harness, Moto Guzzi North America reportedly said good luck with that. The wiring diagram was only available in Italian. They called the bike V10. It has 2 cylinders. The name was chosen because someone thought it sounded cool. Only 1,918 were ever made. If the expanding fuel tank sounds like negligence, that is because it is. But negligence is still a long way from what Norton did. This next one is the reason I made this video. In 2008, a man named Stuart Garner took control of Norton Motorcycles, one of the most storied names in British motorcycling history. He promised to revive the brand with the Commando 961. The bike looked beautiful in press photos. Riders placed deposits. The British government gave Norton favorable treatment as a heritage manufacturer. Garner was photographed with politicians and celebrities. He was the man saving Norton. Here is what was actually happening inside the factory. The Commando 961 lasted just 150 minutes on a standard harsh conditions test rig. For reference, a properly engineered motorcycle should handle that test indefinitely. 150 minutes. That is 2.5 hours. That is barely enough time to ride to the next town and back. Customers who sent their bikes in for routine service at the Norton factory got them back as bare frames. Garner's staff had been stripping customer bikes for parts to build new machines they could sell. Think about that. You drop your Norton off for an oil change. You come back and your wheels are gone, your forks are gone, your engine internals have been swapped out. Because Garner could not afford to buy new parts, so he stole yours. But that was not even the real crime. The real crime was where the money came from. Stuart Garner set up pension investment schemes called Dominator 2012 and Commando 2012, named after Norton motorcycles. He convinced over 227 people, many of them elderly, to invest their retirement savings into what he told them were legitimate investment vehicles. Then he funneled approximately 11 million pounds of their pension money directly into Norton's failing operations. Grandparents who had spent decades saving for retirement watched their nest eggs disappear into a motorcycle factory that could not even build a bike that lasted 3 hours on a test rig. When Norton finally collapsed into administration, TVS Motor Company from India bought what was left. What they found was staggering. 350 individual parts, 36% of the entire motorcycle, had to be replaced or redesigned just to bring the Commando to acceptable standards. The bike that Norton had been selling for up to 28,000 pounds was, at a component level, barely functional. Garner pleaded guilty to fraud in 2022. The parliamentary inquiry that followed became one of the highest profile fraud cases in British manufacturing history. As of today, many of those 227 pensioners still have not recovered their money. Remember that Suzuki allegedly dumped their failed bikes in the ocean? Norton's CEO stole grandparents' retirement money to build his. There is a difference between a bad motorcycle and a criminal enterprise wearing a motorcycle company as a disguise. The Commando 961 was the disguise. After that, the last two almost feel like relief. Bimota built their first ever complete motorcycle in 1997, the V-Do 500, using direct fuel injection adapted from an Australian automotive company. The system was essentially binary. Riders got zero power or all of it, with absolutely nothing in between. Bikes misfired, fouled plugs, dropped cylinders, or seized entirely. The press bikes at launch worked perfectly because Bimota had technicians standing by to tune them between every lap. Customer bikes were virtually unrideable. Only 185 were built before Bimota recalled every single one. They tried carburetors instead, but only 21 of those were completed before the money ran out. Bimota went bankrupt in March 2001. One single bad motorcycle killed an entire company. And the last one feels like a funeral. Harley's CEO told racing genius Eric Buell to cut a Sportster 883 engine in half and build a beginner bike called the Blast. The engine went 80% over budget. Harley profited on each engine sale, while Buell took a net loss on every bike. The big single, with no counterbalancer, vibrated so badly that the factory exhaust sheared off at the header. When Eric Buell finally killed the Blast in 2010, he ran a promotional ad showing one being destroyed in an automobile crusher. He was done. 1 month later, Harley's new CEO, who reportedly did not know how to ride a motorcycle, killed the entire Buell brand. Eric Buell watched the company he built from nothing get erased because Harley decided sport bikes did not fit their image. The Blast did not just fail, it was the excuse Harley used to end a man's life's work. So there you have it, 17 brands, 17 disasters, and they got worse as we went. The first few bikes were ambitious failures built by people who genuinely believed they were creating something new. The middle ones were dangerous, unreliable machines that hurt people who trusted the brand on the tank. And the last few were something else entirely. Companies destroyed, pensions stolen, a man's brand crushed on camera and then erased. Every one of these bikes started the same way. Somebody looked at the plans and said, yeah, this is going to work. The difference is in why they were wrong. Some were too early, some were too ambitious, some were too cheap, and a couple of them were just criminals who happened to build motorcycles. Let me know in the comments which one hit you the hardest. And if you own any of these, I genuinely want to hear your defense. Maybe you will change my mind. Probably not, but I am listening. I will see you in the next one. Ride safe.